Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another Java tutorial in our Java tutorial series. And in this tutorial, we are going to be covering a concept called polymorphism. Now, what is polymorphism? Well, polymorphism basically means that something is occurring in multiple places in multiple different forms. You'll typically see this in the form of methods in classes with the @override annotation added to them. That basically means that from some base class that it's inheriting from, it has its own form of that specific method, and then the child has its own implementation of the same method. For example, in an animal class, you might have something called make noise. You might have a method called make noise, and each animal has a different noise it can make. So each different animal, like a dog or a cat or a bird or something, will inherit from animal, and it will override the make noise or make sound or whatever you call it method, and it'll have its own implementation for making its own specific noise. In fact, let's go ahead and use that example. So, in Eclipse, what you are going to want to do is we're going to create a new class, and we're going to call it animal. So, let's see here. Go to new. And then find Java class. Go ahead and create that. We're going to call it animal. Pretty neat. Now, pretty good. Now let's go ahead and we're going to have a comment with just ellipses representing our different private properties that we might have for an animal. And then, and also its constructor. Well, in fact, let's just have a constructor, so public animal. And because it's not going to do anything, we'll just leave it at that. Okay? Now, we're going to have a method called it's going to be called public void make sound, and then we'll say system out print line some generic sound, right? And then we're also going to have another method, so public void, and then we're going to say, we're going to, we're going to public void, and then we'll basically go ahead and, well, you know what? We're just going to have this one method just to make it a little bit more simple. So we have this, our make sound function, or method, or whatever you want to call it, and it just prints out some generic sound. Pretty simple stuff, right? However, now we can go ahead and create another class. Alright, go ahead and create that class, and we're gonna call it dog. And then we'll create two more classes. We'll create a cat and then a bird class. Right, so go ahead and create that. We're going to call this one cat. And then create a new one called bird. All right, cool. And so bird, if I can find my cursor, bird is going to extend animal. And so we're going to give this also the same kind of thing that we did earlier. So for all the private properties of a bird, just going to leave a comment there. And public, we're going to say public bird super we'll just leave it like that, all in one line there. There. Public bird, right, cool. Now this is where we get to the polymorphism part of it. So we know that we have a make sound method. So if we hit control space, we get some autocomplete, make sound, right? There it is. Once we do that, you can see, boom, it generated the method stub. However, we have an override annotation. That means that it's still the same method from our parent. However, we are giving this class its own particular implementation. So when you call the make sound class from, or not make sound class, but make sound method from a bird object, it will call the bird's implementation of the method instead of the parent's implementation. And you don't need super dot make sound or whatever, because that will call the parent's implementation, and you don't necessarily want that in this particular case. And there are certain cases where you do want to call the parent's implementation and have it execute that alongside your implementation's code. But in this case, that's not what we want. We're just going to have system out print line, and then in here we're going to say chirp chirp. Right, cool. And we can do the same thing inside of our other children classes. So inside of cat, we extend from animal. We say, well, we give it a comment where all the private properties are. And then we say public cat super right, and then we go at override public void make sound, and then we give it what we want it to do. So system out print line meow. And then again, inside of dog, we do the exact same thing. We extend from animal. leave a comment, public dog, an empty constructor, super, and then again at override, public void make sound, system out print line, woof woof. Right. So again, when you want to implement polymorphic code, you have to override a method from its parent from the parent to make a implementation for the child. So when you call that function or method from the child class's implementation gets called instead of the parent's. You can still create an animal object just fine and call its make sound function or method, but keep in mind that it'll only execute the parent implementation, which is usually generic. So with that, let's go into the main class here, and we'll see how exactly that worked. So here we're going to create an animal class. We're going to call it A. Set it equal to a new animal, and then we'll do a.makeSound. Okay. Now we're going to go and make objects for the children. So dog D is equal to a new dog. Cat C is equal to a new cat. And then a bird B is equal to a new bird. And then you'll see we go D dot make sound, C dot make sound, and then B dot make sound. Now these are all the different implementations of make sound, but they are all inherently from the animal class originally. So we can then go ahead and save it and run the code. And in our console, you can see some generic sound, then woof woof for the dog, meow for the cat, and chirp chirp for the bird. Pretty interesting, pretty cool. You can do a lot with this. And it's a rather important concept when you're dealing with object-oriented programming, because when you're dealing with objects and parents and children and all that stuff, you're at some point or another you're going to need to make a child implementation of a method within a parent. So that's where you absolutely need to know what polymorphism is. So, yeah, that basically does it for this video, guys. Thank you all so very much for watching, and we'll see you all in the next one. See ya.